All right, man. Told you talk. Make sure you subscribe to the page. Hit the thumbs up button if you like the content. So today, I'm going to be going through the history of Nipsey Hussle and his tragic passing. This is a very emotional episode for me because I really liked Nipsey Hussle. I think he was a stand-up black man, and he was ended very, 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 very soon, too soon. And yeah, it's just not a good thing. And I really didn't want to do this episode, but I seen it. This guy, he broke it down. I seen this video, and I said, I want to give him some exposure, and also too, I want people to understand who Nipsey was and what he went through when he did for people, and how good of a person he was. So let me get my spill. This is Torture Talk. They call me the Hidden Gem. If you like the content and you ain't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Let me work for your subscription today. If you want to donate, links will be on the screen. Cash App in the description also. And all the beautiful ladies, put one in the chat. Single beautiful ladies, put one in the chat. And all the fellas who ain't on no bullshit, y'all know where the ones is at. Just don't harass them. You know what I'm saying? And also, I don't sell no merch, but I do have content, and that's free. So yeah, so let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. I'm not gonna do too much stopping. I'll watch a little bit, stop, but I ain't gonna do too much stopping. But yeah, so let's get to it. All right, so let's go.
60 years to life in prison. This coming here on this Wednesday out of Los Angeles. Of course, this is a live look in the courtroom right now. The Superior Court judge handed out the sentence to Eric R. Holder, who was found guilty of the 2019 first-degree murder of the 33-year-old Grammy-nominated hip-hop artist outside the clothing store Hustle founded in...
That's crazy. He was only 33 years old. 33, on his way to be one of the greatest. And this doodle stain of a person, this nigga who looked like he never got a shape up ever in his life, this guy here, this nigga who looked like he was birthed, like he came out of his mother's asshole, not the womb. This nigga. Shit stain of a person. Well, let's go.
South Los Angeles, the neighborhood where both men grew up under very similar circumstances.
Nearly 4 years after the tragic shooting of Nipsey Hussle, a beloved Los Angeles rapper whose death had a profound impact beyond the West Coast hip-hop community, Eric R. Holder Jr., the gunman, has been sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. Hussle, whose real name was Ermias Asghedom, was shot in on March 31st, 2019, outside a clothing store he owned in South Los Angeles. The police quickly attributed the attack to a personal dispute. 2 days after the shooting, which also injured 2 bystanders, Eric R. Holder Jr., then 29, turned himself in at a mental health clinic, according to his lawyer. Holder was charged with first-degree attempted and possession of a firearm by a felon. He pleaded not guilty and was held on $6.5 million bail.
How you plead not guilty is the ultimate slap in the face. How you plead not guilty. I don't think these niggas be knowing what pleas are. You physically went and shot the man, but then you pleaded not guilty. You shot him, then pleaded not guilty.
At trial, Los Angeles County prosecutors contended that Eric R. Holder Jr. and Nipsey Hussle, 33, who were old acquaintances and members of the same street gang, had a chance encounter in a strip mall parking lot. During this encounter, Hussle mentioned rumors circulating in the neighborhood that Mr. Holder had cooperated with law enforcement. Minutes later, according to prosecutors and witnesses, Mr. Holder returned with 2 handguns and began firing repeatedly.
We have identified the person believed to be responsible for this devastating crime. He is 29-year-old Eric Holder.
Prosecutors argued that the was premeditated and charged Eric R. Holder Jr. with first-degree. Aaron Jansen, the public defender representing Mr. Holder, acknowledged during the trial that his client had pulled the trigger. However, he contended that the crime occurred in the heat of passion and that Mr. Holder should have been charged with voluntary manslaughter instead. After deliberating for less than an hour on their second day, the jurors found Eric R. Holder Jr. guilty of first-degree. This verdict indicated that they agreed with the...
How is it in the heat of passion or whatever you said when he went back to the car, then came back? So he had enough time to think about what he was about to do. He went to the car, loaded up the pistols, then he came back.
Prosecutor's assertion that Mr. Holder decided to Nipsey Hussle as he returned to his car, loaded a gun, took a few bites of fries, and then marched back through the parking lot to confront the rapper. Eric R. Holder Jr., 33, was also found guilty of 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter for the wounding of 2 bystanders, lesser charges than the attempted counts initially brought by prosecutors. Mr. Jansen, Holder's attorney, argued that the case was overcharged and that his client had no specific intention of harming the 2 other men, both of whom were strangers to him.
Out of here, bro. Get this shit the fuck out of here. So he didn't have the intentions of hurting anybody else, but he's firing off shots. Like, come on, bro. Sometimes I think lawyers are the worst people in the world. You know what I'm saying? I swear, some defense lawyers are wild for defending some of these people. Unbelievable.
He attacked Hussle. Additionally, Mr. Holder was found guilty of possessing a firearm as a felon and 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. In court, Eric R. Holder Jr. stared forward, unflinching. He wore a dark navy suit and white sneakers. As the verdict was announced, the courtroom remained silent, with no reaction from the half-full gallery. In the aftermath of Nipsey Hussle's in early 2019, a rare event unfolded within Los Angeles gang life that had not occurred since the early 90s. The untimely loss of the rap legend sparked a wave of truce talks between Bloods and Crips. Sets, divided by historical rivalries, sought common ground to honor Hussle's legacy. Hussle, a unanimously respected Grammy Award-winning affiliate of the Rollin' 60s Crips, was known for frequently reaching across enemy lines to help foster peace. The impromptu negotiations after Nipsey Hussle's echoed the tense moments before the Los Angeles uprising of 1992, when Tupac Shakur helped organize a truce picnic in Watts. This event aimed to unite rival factions under a 26-point Thug Life manifesto. This charter, created by the progeny of Black Panthers, outlined a more righteous path for those in the streets. It empowered hustlers to enrich themselves and their community while adhering to a strict code of honor. This unofficial constitution condemned snitching, attacking civilians and the police, and selling to children or pregnant women. It advocated for a professional code of ethics to create a safer and more prosperous LA. Alongside the...
Yeah, man. So this guy was such a role model for so many people. I'm on the East Coast and this nigga touched me. I'm all the way over here. Like, you can tell that this was a genuine person. Like, he wasn't one of those people. Like, I never met this dude, but I felt like I'd known him for years. You know what I'm saying? Just off of what he was saying, what he was preaching, how he was telling people how to get money, telling people to invest, crypto and all that stuff. He was doing that. I could just imagine where he would have been at if he was still alive. He would definitely been further than when he is, but it's a tragic, man, tragic death. Man died basically for nothing. Some dude who didn't have anything, and he had everything. Well, not everything, but he was on his way. And it just goes to show you, man, like, these people don't really care. They're just jealous of you. They don't want you to be nowhere. They don't want you to make it nowhere. And he probably felt as though that he needed or should have did something for him. And Nipsey ain't had to do nothing for you. He got everything on his own. He got it out the mud. Some of you niggas be wanting niggas to just give you everything. Y'all don't want to work for shit.
Work of other neighborhood activists. This initiative was credited with helping to reduce violence between warring gangs over the following years. At the time of these negotiations, the late Hustle was just 6 years old, living roughly 8 miles away in South Los Angeles. He would be just over 27 years later, March 31st, 2019, in front of the strip mall that he owned at the intersection of Crenshaw and Slauson, the blocks that he made internationally renowned. In these intervening decades, the rapper born Ermias Joseph Asghedom would come the closest to realizing Tupac's unrealized vision for community upliftment and
That's crazy that this dude, he brought the strip mall that where he lived at and turned it into a place for black employment. He brought the whole strip mall and turned it into something for blacks, for us.
As he declared on his song, Dedication, Hustle was the Tupac of his generation, and he will be honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on August 15th. The rightful LA heir to the late great Machiavelli was a platinum-certified entrepreneur who espoused a buy-back-the-block philosophy to ward off gentrification. His reputation remained unblemished in the streets, but he could also talk eloquently about using opportunity zone tax breaks. He nurtured the next generation of local rappers and looked past gang schisms while donating to nearby schools in the hopes that the neighborhood youth could escape generational poverty. To understand the importance of Nipsey Hussle is not merely to understand the influence of his songs, philanthropy, and philosophy. It's to reckon with the history of the city of Los Angeles and the power of symbolism.
He was a philanthropist, an entrepreneur, business person, mentor, role model. He was a hero to many young people in the Crenshaw area, but also throughout the nation. When he was, his death struck a chord with many. So with that, Your Honor.
Hustle was raised in the Hyde Park neighborhood, the son of an Eritrean immigrant father and a mother whose family left Louisiana during the Great Migration. In his pre-adolescence, he was a straight-A student who loved poetry and hip-hop to the point where he built himself a computer from scratch in order to record music himself. At Hamilton High in West Los Angeles, Hustle was flipping burned CDs in the hallways for $5 a piece, working at his stepfather's Inglewood seafood restaurant, and catching trains and buses to participate in a musical education program at the Watts Towers. Around the same time, he joined his brother Sam in money-making schemes near Crenshaw and Slauson, where they'd sell everything from weed to bootleg DVDs to and t-shirts. Leaving high school at 15, Hustle enrolled at West Los Angeles Community College, where psychology and English classes vied.
Crazy. This nigga was a genius. He left high school at 15 and joined college. He was smart as shit. This is crazy.
His focus against his rap dreams and hustling realities. There were countless recording sessions at makeshift home studios in unfriendly hoods. One early song managed to reach the ears of Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur, who invited him and his collaborators to Georgia to perform at the 2002 release party of Tupac's posthumous album, Better Days. But the early success turned out to be one of several false starts. Legitimate national ascension wouldn't arrive for another half-dozen years, during which he'd rename himself Nipsey Hussle and embark on a 3-month trip to Eritrea that altered the trajectory of his life. In an interview with the filmmaker Tariq Nasheed, Hussle described the trip bringing him into being more conscious of my decisions. I couldn't embrace the narrative of this how expletive go, and that's what it is. That wasn't really it to me no more. Imbued with a deeper sense of family and connection to his African and Black American heritage, Hussle returned home with an enhanced clarity. This new lens toward his hometown eventually led to his breakthrough 2008 mixtape, the regionally canonized Bullets Ain't Got No Name, Volume 1, expanding upon L.A.'s and palm trees, gangsta rap tradition, his flow and cadences bounced with the drowsy but never slipping menace of a young Snoop Dogg and the unvarnished soul of Tupac.
That's one thing I want to say. I remember when I first heard Nipsey Hussle, I actually had a radio show called Shadowcoradio. And one of my friends said to me, yo, do you ever heard of this dude named Nipsey Hussle? And I was like, nah. He was like, yo, I'm trying to get into like these new artists. He said, so I'm gonna go and look him up. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I went and looked him up, and I listened to him. I said, oh, this dude's all right. He had a choppy flow at the time, but it was very crafty and catchy. You know what I'm saying? I remember. And I'm like, okay. And what really put me on was, what really made me start liking him was Chris Y'all. The CD he did. I actually spent $100 to get the CD. $100. Because the dude around my way, he was selling it. He had a bunch of them. He burned a bunch of copies, but he was selling them for $100. And I didn't know at the time whether the money was going to Nipsey Hussle or not, but still in all, I still brought it. But that was the most I ever spent for a CD. But I was saying to myself, damn, a nigga actually sold a CD for $100. Ain't nobody gonna buy it. But motherfuckers did buy it though. It's crazy.
He became the nexus between the 1990s Death Row, Aftermath empire and the Kendrick Lamar-led Top Dog entertainment domination that would soon define the next wave of West Coast hip-hop. By 2009, Hussle received his first taste of mainstream recognition for his crisscross sampling debut single, Hustle in the House. It failed to crack the Billboard charts, but introduced a broader audience to the next contender for the throne of LA street rap, a vacancy unclaimed for most of the previous decade. He made it clear that he was from the soil, starting his introductory anthem by interpolating NWA without succumbing to revivalist nostalgia. Unlike many of his unremembered Ozorn's peers, who flatly mimicked West Coast gangster rap tropes, Hussle's three-dimensional storytelling turned his vignettes of street life into timeless anthems. If the plots largely revolve around familiar themes of relentless grinding, bewildering pain, and constantly encroaching enemies, his literary detail allowed listeners to feel the trickling sweat, the exhausting paranoia, and the doubt embedded in the prayers for safe passage through enemy hoods. Over the past 3 decades, there have been innumerable rap songs about paying dues, but on Hussle's 2008 Paid My Dues, the listener is transported to vanished Christmas mornings, when Nipsey and his brother were so broke that the closest they came to celebrating the holiday was watching a friend open presents. His raw talent and deafening buzz won him a deal with Epic Records, but things quickly went awry. Hussle hit all the quintessential benchmarks of a rising rap star: the XXL freshman cover, a Drake co-sign and feature, and the respect and admiration from 2 of LA's biggest artists at the time, Snoop Dogg and The Game. But his timing couldn't have been worse. CD sales had plummeted, the streaming era remained over a half-decade away, and mixtapes were rarely monetizable. Unless you had Dr. Dre's imprimatur, West Coast gangster rap was seen as a nearly extinct subgenre. And after a corporate reshuffling at Epic ushered in a CEO who wanted Hussle to collaborate with the EDM producer du jour, he and the label parted ways.
Nah, I just didn't quit. That's the only distinguishing quality from me and probably whoever else going through this or went through this or is gonna go through this, is that I ain't quit. I went through every emotion. I went through every emotion with trying to pursue what I'm doing, you know what I mean? And I think that what gonna separate whoever's gonna try to go for something is that you ain't gonna quit.
What happened next might as well have come straight out of the hero.
That's 100% facts. 100% facts. I've been doing this for years and I'm finally starting to get some recognition. You can't quit, man. Can't give up. You got to keep it going.
Journey. For the next 3 years, Hussle struggled to sustain equilibrium. At least that's how it appeared to outsiders. If the Bay Area sustained a vibrant ecosystem for independent rappers, Los Angeles' proximity to the major labels made them seem necessary for any rapper aiming for seismic cultural impact. Hussle was left for dead by the industry. If respect for him remained unimpeachable, the hype dwindled. Odd Future, YG, Kendrick Lamar, and TDE became the new standard bearers from the West. Were it not for Hussle's stereoscopic vision, creativity, an indefatigable drive, he could have become a minor late R0's footnote. Defiantly forging a self-sustaining redoubt, Hustle redoubled his dedication to his craft, living in the studio, building up the roster of his All Money and imprint, and consecrating his philosophy of life as a marathon. His first release after going independent, appropriately titled The Marathon, was accompanied by a digital booklet featuring a new manifesto. "I am driven by both financial and creative motives," Hustle wrote. "The decision I had to make recently is which motive I would give priority to in my career." Hustle knew that his long-lasting impact would come not in making ephemeral hits for terrestrial radio, but soundtracks for the LA streets south of Interstate 10. In his essay, Hustle explained his dissatisfaction with the label and how the convoluted web of constantly shifting executives, A&Rs, and middle management meddled in the art, thereby creating confusion in consumers, which paradoxically diluted the authenticity that made them want to sign him in the first place. "I will never say something I don't agree with or believe in, even if the reward is massive," Hustle wrote. "I always told myself that if I make it here, I would keep it true to my heart and soul. I will not break my word for anyone." It was only right that his true rebirth began with a mixtape named after one of LA's central arteries, Crenshaw. Upon its 2013 release,
It's right there. There it is. There it is. I actually got Marathon after that one. You know what I'm saying? But there it is.
the value of music had never felt more disposable. Determined to reaffirm its value as art, Hustle announced that physical copies would be sold for $100 apiece. Impressed by the bold gambit, Jay-Z publicly purchased 100 copies for $10,000, earning Hustle international headlines and an unmatched cosign for his business and branding ingenuity. With his career once again ascendant, he inked a partnership with Atlantic Records for Victory Lap, his eventual platinum-certified major label debut and magnum opus, which was released after a series of delays in early 2018. It debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200 album charts and spawned Last Time That I Checked, his first single to land on the Hot 100. But like Tupac, the music worked in tandem with how Hustle existed as a cultural North Star. He exuded dignity, a royal bearing, and a generous heart that allowed him to transcend historical enmities. A proud Rolling 60s Crip, Hustle famously collaborated with members of the Bloods and quietly worked behind the scenes to diffuse violence. Shortly before his death, he had set up a meeting with the Los Angeles Chief of Police to work on ways to stop gang violence and improve the lives of local children. Aware of the dangers that gentrification posed to historically black neighborhoods, Hustle established his Marathon clothing store in the same Crenshaw and Slauson strip mall, where he once handed out his mixtapes to anyone who would take one. Whereas many rappers...
It's crazy. That's crazy, man. That's crazy, man. Damn. They always take the good ones, man. Always take the good ones. Shit's crazy.
Only used their fame to promote close friends or those in whom they had a financial stake. Hustle mentored and helped introduce the new class of local superstars in 003 Grado, Bino Rideau, and G Perico, when the late South Central rapper Draco the Ruler was incarcerated on charges, for which he was later acquitted. Hustle messaged him to pay for his bail, even though they barely knew each other. And during the rise of Donald Trump, it was Hustle who stole the show with his verse on YG's FDT, the defining political diatribe of the era. Hustle's hyper-regional dedication fostered a level of fan appreciation that went far beyond a casual appreciation. If Tupac pledged his undying loyalty to Los Angeles late in life, Hustle's devotion to his city was unwavering since birth. He was a people's champ who was revered because the residents saw themselves in his Dodgers fitted and sense of tradition, his shout-outs to Mexican people and culture, and in his understated integrity that directly contradicted the Hollywood myth that most homegrown residents always blanched at.
Pac was a street dude.
Right.
And he represented thug life on the surface, right? But you get into the message and his direction, he was really a revolutionary and trying to lead people.
Yeah.
And trying to, you know what I mean, offer a positive direction without being preachy and without being so-called holier than thou. And that's what I meant in terms of like Tupac and my generation.
The tragedy of Tupac's life was that he was at just 25, leaving behind dozens of notebooks filled with his entrepreneurial dreams, movie scripts that went unmade, and plans to empower the black community. In Hustle, who would meet a similarly tragic demise in 2019, at the messianic age of 33, Shakur's vision would begin to be achieved. By operating the Marathon store and eventually buying the lot on which it stood, Hustle offered a sense of hope for the historically dispossessed. He employed local designers and other people from the surrounding blocks, It was not only that Hustle endured intense hardships to triumph, but also that he refused to abandon the place that had nurtured his gifts. This desire to give back, this wealth of spirit, would hauntingly lead to his death in early 2019 when Eric Holder shot him in front of his marathon store. He was later convicted. Hustle was only there that afternoon to give free clothing to an acquaintance, recently released from prison and in dire need of assistance. According to court testimony, on that Sunday afternoon, Hustle arrived at the shopping plaza for an unannounced visit, as he often did. While catching up with friends and employees in the parking lot in front of his marathon store, Hustle spent about half an hour signing autographs and posing for photos with fans. At the same time, a man Mr. Holder was casually dating was driving him around the area just to hang out, as she testified. This woman, initially kept anonymous to protect her from threats and harassment, was identified at trial as Brynita Nicholson. As they stopped to get something to eat, Ms. Nicholson noticed Hustle outside the store and made a passing remark about his appearance. Mr. Holder, without indicating that he knew the rapper, approached him for a brief conversation after ordering chili cheese fries at a nearby burger place, while Ms. Nicholson waited in the car. The brief conversation between the two men was described as casual and low-key, according to witness testimony. During this exchange, Hustle mentioned to Mr. Holder that there were rumors circulating about him cooperating with law enforcement or snitching. Hustle encouraged Mr. Holder to get the paperwork to prove otherwise and clear up the rumors, as stated by John McKinney, the Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney. It just seemed like a regular conversation, Mr. McKinney told the jury. But obviously it wasn't. As the conversation between the men concluded, Ms. Nicholson approached Hustle for a selfie, which she later posted to Facebook. She testified. When asked if she sensed any impending conflict, Ms. Nicholson stated, "No, I wasn't afraid at all." Upon returning to the car, Mr. Holder instructed her to pull into another nearby parking lot so he could eat his fries, she said. While there, she witnessed him loading a 9mm. She testified. After taking a few bites of his food, he walked back toward Hustle's store. Witnesses reported that Mr. Holder confronted the rapper and uttered, "You're through," before opening fire with a gun in each hand, hitting Hustle at least 10 times, and then kicking him twice in the head. "You got me," Hustle said. According to the prosecutor, two other men, Kerry Lathan and Shermy Villanueva, were wounded by the gunfire. Recognized in the neighborhood as another member of the Rollin' 60s Crips, Mr. Holder was more commonly known by his nickname, a descriptive epithet. Surveillance footage captured the shooting, along with the car he used to flee the scene, and the police promptly publicized this information. Upon seeing her vehicle featured on the news, Ms. Nicholson submitted to a 5-hour interview with police officers. Additionally, searches were conducted of her car and her mother's home, where Mr. Holder had spent the night of the shooting before relocating to hide out at a Motel 6. Ms. Nicholson testified that she had heard the gunshots, but was confused about what had occurred until she saw coverage of Hustle's death online. When Mr. Holder first returned to the car, she recalled during grand jury testimony in 2019, "He's like, drive, before I slap you." She declined to press him on the specifics of what happened out of fear, she said. That Tuesday, 2 days after the shooting, Mr. Holder was arrested without incident in Bellflower, California. The weapons were never found. Ms. Nicholson later agreed to immunity from prosecution in exchange for her testimony at trial. Mr. Holder was initially represented by Chris Darden, a lawyer perhaps best known for his role as one of the prosecutors in the 1995 trial of O.J. Simpson. However, Mr. Darden withdrew from the case shortly thereafter, citing death threats against his family. Instead, Mr. Holder was represented at trial by Mr. Jansen, the public defender, who did not dispute that Mr. Holder was the shooter, but argued instead that the case was overcharged. In court, Mr. Jansen stated that Mr. Holder was so enraged over the allegations of snitching that he returned 9 minutes later without thinking and began shooting without premeditation. He argued that instead of first-degree premeditated, Mr. Holder should have been charged with voluntary manslaughter because he acted in the heat of passion. Mr. Jansen also emphasized that Mr. Holder had
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. You knew exactly what you was doing, nigga. You knew what you was doing. You went back to the car and then told the girl to drive to a different location. And then you went back there and then you ran.
Fear, she said. That Tuesday, 2 days after the shooting, Mr. Holder was arrested without incident in Bellflower, California. The weapons were never found. Ms. Nicholson later agreed to immunity from prosecution in exchange for her testimony at trial. Mr. Holder was initially represented by Chris Darden, a lawyer perhaps best known for his role as one of the prosecutors in the 1995 trial of O.J. Simpson. However, Mr. Darden withdrew from the case shortly thereafter, citing death threats against his family. Instead, Mr. Holder was represented at trial by Mr. Jansen, the public defender, who did not dispute that Mr. Holder was the shooter, but argued instead that the case was overcharged. In court, Mr. Jansen stated that Mr. Holder was so enraged over the allegations of snitching that he returned 9 minutes later without thinking and began shooting without premeditation. He argued that instead of first-degree premeditated, Mr. Holder should have been charged with voluntary manslaughter because he acted in the heat of passion. Mr. Jansen also emphasized that Mr. Holder had no intent to harm Mr. Lathan and Mr. Villanueva, and therefore should not have been charged with attempted in their cases. Despite these arguments, Mr. Holder was ultimately convicted and faces life in prison. In addition to being the agreed-upon motive in the shooting of Hustle, the concept of snitching and its significant influence in gang culture affected court testimony in the case. While multiple witnesses identified Mr. Holder as the shooter, others declined to provide detailed recollections of the episode on the stand. Furthermore, one witness failed to appear, with lawyers on both sides citing a reluctance to testify due to fear of potential retribution. Even one of the victims of the shooting appeared reticent during the trial. Mr. Lathan, who was wounded in the incident, declined to identify Mr. Holder as the shooter while on the stand. "I don't know nothing, don't see nothing," he said, as reported by news sources. "You don't want to testify about what happened?" a prosecutor asked. "That's right," Mr. Lathan replied. Cedric Washington, a Los Angeles police detective, testified that the issue was widespread, not just limited to gang-related cases. "I found that a majority of people are reluctant to come to court or talk to law enforcement," he said on the stand. "Everybody seems to think that from coming to court, they are going to be subject to retaliation." On February 22nd, 2023, nearly 4 years after the shooting, a judge sentenced Mr. Holder to 60 years to life in prison. Mr. Holder received 25 years to life for the an additional 25 years to life because a firearm was used in the commission of the crime, and 10 years for shooting Mr. Lathan and Mr. Villanueva, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Anyways, all these battles can't deny the fact that we lost a legend. However, Tupac once said, "People die, but legends live forever." Hustle embodied this idea and sustained his ideas about social justice, black empowerment, and sense of artistic fearlessness. Hustle was not a substitute, but a new link added to the tradition. Their legacies now exist as an eternal form of native myth. In the firmament of hip-hop culture and Los Angeles life, they remain undying symbols of possibility, courage, and resistance. Those who fought for something much greater than themselves, that would never be realized in their lifetimes, but who could inspire their spiritual kinsmen to refuse to accept the status quo, to resist conventional wisdom and deep-rooted cynicism, and to understand that this is a long race.
Yeah, man. That was very, very difficult to watch. I mean, if you followed Nipsey Hussle's career, you'll understand that this man, he moved with so much passion about whatever he did and everything he did behind what he did. He had a lot of people following him, man. And it's just very sad to see a good, genuine person just get taken like that. Like, it's not something that anybody would want to happen. It's just very sad, because as much as he did to help people, you got people like this dude that's always gonna combat. It's like, I always ask myself every day, like, why do people have to do the things that they do? It's like, so you was so upset that you wanted to just get a man out of here for good, and now you'll live in prison for the rest of your life, and you're always gonna have to watch your back. It's very difficult, man, to just, I don't know. I'm kind of a loss for words, and that's really rarely not me. But I don't know, man. I just want to end this episode. All right, man. Torture Talk. You know what it is. See y'all. Peace.